Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us again today for the second portion of our virtual webinar Tech Day. Today, this section will be covering the log analytics. But before we begin, for those who are just joining us anew, some quick housekeeping regarding the GoToWebinar features. You will have a GoToWebinar control panel that will be launched or should be launched already. If you have some slow Wi-Fi connection or audio issues, please feel free to expand the audio section and select the radio button for telephone. Directions will be displayed for dialing in and typing in the appropriate meeting number in order to join the audio portion of this WebEx webinar through voice or telephone. Secondly, as we're going through the webinar, you will be able to ask questions. Everybody will be on mute, so please ask your questions via the questions section of the webinar. Just expand that section and you can type in your question here. It will be saved and I will review those questions at the end of the webinar and do as much Q&A as I possibly can, depending on the number of questions and amount of time remaining. That's it for now. The last thing, if you would like to pop out that thing and give yourself more room, you can click on this little button here and it'll remove or pop out that question section off of the control panel and allow you to float that anywhere on your screen. All right. Now, if you just stand by for just a few minutes, we will begin the webinar in just a few seconds. Hello, everybody. Thanks again. My name is Armando Wershing, and I am with Compasso. We are an Oracle Platinum partner. Today, you are joining us for the second part of our three-part Tech Day of webinars, virtual webinars, on the Oracle Management Cloud offerings. This one will be on the Oracle Log Analytics offering. But before we start, there are a couple slides I'd like to cover. In case anybody did not attend or did not make our overview session, we will have a few slides just to set up and provide a baseline of Brown Oracle Management Cloud, the Log Analytics tool set, and then we'll do a live demo and talk through a little bit deeper into Log Analytics, how it works, how to set up, some of the things you can do with it, etc. So all in all, it should take a little bit less than an hour. Should have you back to your normal everyday procedures and works before the end of the hour. Right? First, we'll start with our typical safe harbor statement. If you have any particular harbors that you really like, think of those. They're a happy place. This is the happy place for those of us who present software technology, in that it lets us make sure that you understand that it's software, it changes. As I make statements today, tomorrow they could be different if Oracle releases a new release. In fact, as I was preparing for these sessions just this month, Oracle released an update to the Management Cloud that added some new features. We'll be talking to those as well a little bit later on today. A little bit about Compasso. We were founded in 1995, so that actually should say that we're over 20 years in business. Offices in North and South America. We deal exclusively with Oracle technology, Platinum partnership. You can feel free to come join us or see us at Open World if you'd like. We will always be there. And we also have the ability to basically be a one-stop shop for you. If you'd like to basically like these tools and you just want to talk to one person and handle the licensing and everything, we can do that for you. Or if you already own licenses or just need a discussion on how to leverage existing licenses with new licenses or new technologies, we can provide that education the training for the tools, implementation, and of course ongoing operations of the tools and management maintenance if you need that as well. My role is I manage all the cloud implementations for the Management Cloud, Enterprise Manager tools, as well as Commerce Cloud and all those things as well. We also have a practice focused around ERP, specifically the cloud ERP financials area, and lots of experience setting that up with the expense reporting and such. And for those companies that are trying to bring or expand out into the Brazil market, we have a lot of experience enabling or setting up ERP systems to support the Brazil tax localization laws, which are quite interesting and quite challenging to implement for ERP systems. So lots of experience setting that up. Lastly, we have another large practice focused around the Oracle Commerce tools, that being for either B2B or B2C e-commerce, and can definitely help you with all the various offerings, whether they be the ATG and Adeka technologies or the Commerce Cloud offering that's new and very interesting and extremely powerful capabilities there to get onto e-commerce platforms very, very quickly. So with that slight sidetrack for a commercial about Compasso, if you attended some of the earlier sessions this month that were the general overview sessions, some of these slides might look familiar, but I do like to cover them at the beginning of each of these sessions as we lead into this virtual session on log analytics. So we make sure we understand, for those who weren't there for the first sessions that provide an overview of OMC. So what is it? What is Oracle Management Cloud? Well, to understand the goal of Management Cloud, you got to understand where it came from. The role that it's supposed to fill. And to do that, I present to you my very brief and extremely simplified history of IT operations. Many, many, many years ago, probably even before I started in IT, I like to say that things started with the hunt and gather method, right? And yes, I do kind of follow this trend of human evolution, if shall we say. This hunt and gather method where you will go out, something happens, you go out and find it, and you try and kill it by finding the appropriate information, the appropriate metrics, right, so that you can kill the bug, right? How do you find out what's going on? Well, the ever popular ps-ef grep for Java, right, to go find out if any Java programs are going out of control. The top command. Microsoft early on came out with its MOM system to be able to monitor Microsoft network Microsoft servers and such. So lots of stuff that basically gave you the ability, or you had the ability to go out and gather a lot of information, right? Hunt and peck for it, another term, and put together and then analyze it to solve a problem. But it was really point in time. It wasn't happening on its own, and it was difficult to go out, right, and just keep that maintained all the time. You're really dependent on a singular source of human resource that was just really good at that job. Then things migrated. MS MOM was kind of like the first step, and it's definitely gotten there, gotten much more powerful since. But you had other tools that were out there, like Nagios and such, that were on-prem. You installed them on the server, you ran them, you configured them. Sometimes it was as easy as downloading a little object, something to install that would actually gather information. Oftentimes it was more intricate than that. People had to write scripts to pull data off of things and feed that data into a reporting system. Now, that reporting system was really more of a high-level reporting system and didn't have a lot of depth, right? So these were tools that, again, you farmed the information. So something automated the collection. You weren't going out there and hunting for this information. You were gathering it instead, right? Just farming it, and you knew where it was, and you tend it and bring it into these reporting systems. But they were still pretty high maintenance, right? A lot of log rolling had to be maintained. A lot of patching had to be done. A lot of hardware had to be purchased and set up. And thus that meant there was additional patching, not just for the reporting software, the operation software, but on all the underlying systems, and so on and so forth. So you had a lot of tools in various areas. The DBAs had a tool, the sysadmins had a tool, the network teams had a tool that gave you pieces of information at a high level, right? But they still required a lot of maintenance. Now, bring it to the past few years where you've moved into a model of monitoring as a service. where data is collected by a variety of services, right, that you have paid for. That data, they come into your systems, grab that data, pull it into their system, or you enter it or upload it into their systems, and it allows you then to work with that data. You still have in this world, right, the need or the roles of having very siloed information. Your performance, your monitoring goes somewhere, your testing goes somewhere, your service information goes somewhere, your configuration information goes somewhere else, and they're not very integrated. Now, what you have saved, right, you do have the ability to now offload the IT operations for your IT operations software tools, right? So now you no longer, if you're using some of these services, you don't have to have a server that you maintain and patch the OS and maintain, make sure it's up on your system and your hardware that you're updating, the disk storage and all that. You don't have to worry about all that because you're now purchasing the service of monitoring, and somebody else is managing the actual service doing the monitoring. But you still have a lot of these siloed tools, right? So there's an understanding of a benefit of moving to the cloud, right? But where does Oracle fit into this? How does Oracle migrate past this monitoring as a service capability? Well, they looked at specifically those first challenges, right? The ones that had people moving to the cloud. Number one, from an IT operations perspective, if we're putting more money into IT that's not directly impacting the or providing immediate benefit or high, what's the value on the return for monitoring business applications, then how are you going to use that, right? What's the benefit of that? You got to measure the needs of IT wanting newer tools, faster deployments, right? Which means you have to deploy your monitoring tools faster against the typical monolithic type of ops monitoring tools where you have hardware, you have software you've purchased that's running on that hardware, and now you have to have IT operations performing updates, not on business capabilities for new features, but on the IT operations tools for maintenance, right? So obviously the cloud lets you kind of give away and not have to worry about the right side of the seesaw, right? Software, hardware updates. You're letting Oracle, right, take care of that for you so that IT ops and the business can now get the benefit of newer tools and faster deployments and all the monitoring pieces, but without the overhead, right? That's where Oracle Management Cloud comes in. It's taking that ability to offload all that hardware, all that operational costs, all those resources necessary to maintain operational tools, right? And purchasing them as a service so that you can scale quickly. So you don't have to worry about additional hardware for operational tools. You can focus that on, more directly tools or service or hardware that's more directly in line with revenue generating operations. It also combines a whole bunch of different capabilities under one management cloud offering, right? Not multiple siloed vendors, but one place, one-stop shop for your management needs. Now, that is the long-term goal of the management cloud, right? Initially, there's only 3 offerings, and we're going to talk about those just in a second, and then we're going to go deep into one of them. Specifically, how this works is you're gathering all this information into the management cloud, whether that's data generated from machines, right? OS log entries, things like that, or customer generated data. Maybe those applications logs that are generated, that they're entries every time a user connects or makes a call or a particular service call is generated, right? All this data is continuously sent up to the Oracle Management Cloud. There is machine learning that goes on to detect anomalies. And of course, there's processing going on real time to allow you to go and do real time insights. You can also create interesting dashboards, especially around logs, which we're going to look about today, that allow you to do some very comprehensive monitoring, not just of metrics, which we looked at earlier today with application performance monitoring, but business related metrics that you can extract right out of the log data. And we'll talk about that as well. So the different tools that are part of Management Cloud, the 3 current offerings: application performance monitoring, your end user monitoring, log analytics, which is that drill down, that ability to make logs easily searchable and alertable and referenceable, and then IT analytics. And today, or right now in this session, we're going to cover log analytics. IT analytics will be later, and application performance monitoring was done earlier today. Log Analytics Cloud. What are we going to do here? What do you do with Log Analytics? Well, if you've ever done system administration, you know that logs are an incredibly powerful and rich source of data. And there are a lot of logs, right? In fact, when we're really trying to do some deep assessment of issues and trying to find what's going on, first thing that usually happens is somebody turns on, verbose logging or some higher level of logging. There are millions and sometimes billions of events that are tied to a log, right? And so being able to look through that log, make it searchable, right? Make it usable is absolutely imperative for any valuable use of logs. This is where the machine learning, right, and the pattern recognition comes in at the OMC level. It would require a significant amount of horsepower on your end to do this kind of work. You'd have to buy some pretty expensive servers. But by Oracle offering this as a service, they can leverage a much larger cloud service to be able to have the horsepower to process these logs. Now, your logs are not shared with anybody else. There are also additional security measures that if you still are concerned about security, we'll talk about those a little bit later, like data masking within the log entries. We'll talk about that. But the goal here is leveraging the power of the cloud to do a lot of processing on a lot of data, right? Big data, a lot of raw data. Now, once you have it up there, it makes it searchable, right? And it does some analysis. It does analysis and starts doing some pattern-based recognition, helping you identify outliers. And this is important because just dumping all your logs somewhere and making them searchable is not the end-all be-all, okay? Search is great when you know what you're searching for, right? If I know I'm searching for a purple Cadillac, I can type in purple Cadillac for sale into Google and it'll find me some purple Cadillacs for sale, I'm sure. The problem is if I don't know what I want or what I'm looking for, is like, I have a problem. Well, you can only imagine the search that would come back on Google if you type in, I have a problem, right? The world is your possible nightmare at that point, not your oyster. So what OMC Cloud does in IT analytics, log analytics, is to quickly allow you to identify those outliers via pattern recognition, via intelligent drill downs, right? And the ability to pivot or turn on a variety of different points to find specific data that looks like it could be the cause of something. All of that done within the context of your application's topology, right? So all of this data is aware of where it's coming from, and so you can trace to it from the various sources, right? You can create dashboards, right? So a lot of this data is much easier to consume and much more valuable when looked at the aggregate level, right? Take all this data, all these log entries, pick out the ones that make sense, that have key value information, in particular for the business, and create logs that provide high levels of information, right? So I guess the term you want to think of this is to have highly dense, right, amounts of information displayed easily on a dashboard. So even though there might be only 2 or 3 things showing on the graph, as you look at those things, you realize they show a lot of information in that small amount of space, right? So densely packed information. We'll look at what that means in just a second. Right. So you'll be able to do this. There's a lot of widgets you can use and chart controls, and we'll look at those during the demo as well. Now, one of the biggest values within the Oracle Management Cloud, as I mentioned earlier, is the integration. And I alluded to this just a few minutes ago in one of the previous slides. But when you talk about these different tools, the APM, the log analytics, the IT analytics, the ability to leverage capabilities across them is what really drives the big bargain home. Okay. We talked about APM earlier today in a different session and how that captures machine metrics, a lot of detailed, specific quantitative metrics about performance, like page load times, service call times, CPU usage, right, memory usage, things like that. And during those calls, we saw that there was a click. You could click on a drill down and go straight into the log for those applications. What that means is that as you are identifying and drilling through the metrics that are going to bring you to key information or key possible root cause of an issue, you can, once you get to that, you can quickly click on a server and drill down into the logs for that particular application to identify what may be going on. That click into the logs will be an intelligent pass on to the log analytics tool, i.e., it will filter it down to the right time space that you were looking at in APM, the right server and or application that you were looking at within APM, and so quickly get you to a finer grained context of logs that you should be focused on as opposed to going all over the place. And then from there, you can add your own additional searches to search for specific types of errors or strings or things like that. Okay, so within that, how does this all work? To deploy log analytics, you're going to be deploying a couple things. One of them is necessary, one of them is not. The cloud agents get deployed onto target hosts, okay, and data collectors. Cloud agents gather from the various servers in log analytics. They'll capture log data. Cloud agents also can capture AWR data. The data collector is set up to run in conjunction with Oracle Enterprise Manager. For IT analytics, that is required, and actually for log analytics, I'm pretty sure it's not required. At one point it was, but I think with this, I have to go back and look through documentation for the March release. I believe it's no longer required. What the data collector does is it looks into your existing Enterprise Manager repository and pulls out the information that allows it to quickly organize and identify where these logs are in relation to each other with respect to technology, or as in an app server or a database server, whether they're an application, what servers they're on, things like that. It provides a lot of metadata for understanding the logs and displaying the information that you would not have to do yourself, right, if you were setting these agents up outside of Enterprise Manager. So it's giving you the best of both worlds. It's letting you leverage your existing topology information, relationship information that's already defined within Oracle, your Enterprise Manager OMR, and then integrating that into the Oracle Management Cloud so that as it's putting logs, it's automatically mapping those logs to the same things that you would be looking at within Enterprise Manager. So it's really extending your Enterprise Manager pieces. But if you don't have that, then you can configure kind of how to grab the server names and all that stuff and organize the data within Oracle Management Cloud directly yourself. That's a little bit more than what we're going to have time to cover today, but I just want to let you know that that's possible. Now, if you're wondering, what are the cloud agents going out and gathering? All right, this is just the first part of multiple pages of information, but just to give you a taste, right? You're looking at server logs, error logs. If you're at HTTP, it's looking at SSL logs, database logs. The audit logs are extremely powerful here, of course, if you're making changes. It is going to look at Enterprise Manager Cloud Control, agent logs and stuff if you wanted to do that. BI Publisher, and go on through the web. The next couple pages out of the documentation will lead you into the WebLogic or Apache Tomcats, etc. Not Tomcats, but Apache. Apache Tomcats. Yes, server logs that are going to be out there in graph, and we'll look at this in more detail a little bit later. But as you can see, there's a lot out there possible to be covered, and the documentation for the clouds goes into more details to what's out of the box. Now, beyond just the out-of-box, you have the ability to define your own sources of information, as well as upload your own files if you wanted to. So if, for example, let's say you got Oracle Management Cloud, and you have an archive of old files that you actually want to upload because you'd like to try and troubleshoot something that you had, also very useful for running a POC if you wanted to, but allows you to upload those files on. It will ingest, consume those files, put them into the database and make them searchable for you, just like it would any live log that it was capturing. Okay, so that is an option as well. All right, so with enough of a baseline, let us go ahead and jump into the live demo. If you have any questions, it's going to take me about a minute, maybe two, to get everything set up. Perfectly good time to jump out there, click on your questions section, expand it out, and decide and type in those questions you might have for later. If I quickly scan through them and I see anything that I need to answer before we start, I will do so. But again, feel free to jump in there and answer those questions or point those questions. 1 second while I go start the demo. All right, let's get started. This is the home page for the Oracle Management Cloud. So as you see here, we have our typical APM offering, or the log analytics offering, and the IT analytics offering. The dashboards are cool because they give you an ability to create dashboards that can pull metrics from any one of these sources, right? So as I dive into the dashboards, just for an example, there's a dashboard here that's actually based off of the log analytics. It's based off of several sources or some of the views, but this particular view is specific to log analytics. So the data you're seeing here, right, very business oriented, right? How many rides are being accepted in this ride share application, right? Where are our busiest regions, right? Where are we getting the most activity from, and what kind of rides are being requested? So all of this is very rich information for the business, right? And it's all being done by scanning and using specific searches along the logs, and specific logs in particular that tell us where that information or where these metrics are coming from and what's going on, so that I can actually have a dashboard that is very functional, very business friendly, and actually tells me what's going on. And quite interestingly, right off the bat, we're doing pretty good as far as the activity, but suddenly right around 1 to 2 p.m., we have an issue, right? Where something's going on here where our rides are dropping in what we think should be a time when we consider to have some pretty high load. And I can see that most of our activity is coming from different areas, but obviously our biggest market happens to be San Francisco. That is great. If one of these other bars, the business says, hey, I didn't know we were getting that much traffic there, maybe we should put some more marketing money there. And then the kinds of rides that we're getting, right? Still hitting a lot of economy, but we're getting a lot of interesting activity around SUVs, right? Some other stuff. So lots of business information coming from log analytics. Now, in the management cloud, to get around, there's always this little compass-looking button at the top, right? Our navigator. Let's just get to wherever we need to go. I'm going to go back to the home for APM just so we can click right into IT analytics. Now, you can drive into a particular type of source, right, for these, but I'm just going to go ahead and go to the, oops, actually, I just realized I was clicking on the wrong one. I was one session ahead of myself. Let me go back to the home and go to log analytics, which is where we're supposed to be. Let's go look into the log analytics. Now, log analytics, as we dive in, really is a very interactive source of data, right? Where is it coming? Where are we getting it? So right now we have a pie, right? That's telling us how to get somewhere based on the log, just on the source, right? So it's giving us data broken up by log source. Now you can create your search in any way you want. Let's suppose we got rid of the log source, right? And we said that we actually wanted to group it by target. And actually, I'm just going to go ahead and say, let's just do target type, right? Just go ahead and add all of them. See our breakup from there. Also need to drag it over there. Helps if I drag it into the right spot. There we go. So group it by target type. And then let's suppose I wanted to break it, by messages that had severity. But first, I actually want to go and select, expand this here a little bit. Incident, believe is what we're looking for. Nope. Let me, usually it sorts them right up to the top. I don't know why it disappeared on me. We'll go based on Let's see if severity is the right one. Yep. So let's say we want to do all of these, break them down by severity. And then we're going to break them down by severity as well. There we go. Then we could also kind of do a heat map on these. It allows us to add some more information. So if I wanted to go back and add that target type, so now we know that, let me change the orders. Won't let me change. So here we've figured out that we have different types of severities. We have errors, we have warnings, we have unknowns. Unknowns, basically mean that we don't worry about. But in our world, in this particular world, we know that an unknown is just a regular log entry, not necessarily an error that's being tracked. I can see just by this heat map that the majority of all my errors are happening within this Oracle WebLogic server. Warnings are happening across the web server as well, but really nothing's going on at the database level that we know of at this time. I can click into my WebLogic server, add it to my list, and start looking at a histogram of records along that level. So which log entries happen at which time, right? And I can start listing those. If I can filter down if I need to. I know that my problems started happening in that 2 to 3 p.m. time frame. So we can list those out as needed and drill down into them. If I wanted to say, hey, I just want to limit this to just error severities, which actually I had already done by selecting that there, it's going to redo the search at that time. We'll let that finish loading. All right. So now if I wanted to say, we had a lot of records entering, but we saw a peak of these error records happening right around 156. So I'm going to search in on that. And now it drills us down into that minute, right? So now we're looking within that minute, and I can see where these errors are coming from. And then I can also do something that's pretty cool. So I'm going to go in here and I say I want to do basically what's called a cluster. And what a cluster does, it takes a lot of information and clusters it together based on what we were seeing. So just to bring that back, if I go back and I say I'm looking at the histogram, right? My records with histogram view, I'm seeing the errors occurring over a certain amount of time, but I have to scroll through all this and somehow remember what is the same across these errors. Well, when I say cluster it, right? What clustering does is it automatically goes in there and tells me what is the common, right? Or groups things together based on common things that are occurring or common things that it sees. This is that machine logic working. So all of those messages we were seeing all have basically the same message. A fault is triggered on a purpose in restaurant, blah, 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 place order, try again. So we were seeing 9 entries in that previous view, but now we know that really all those 9 entries are the same thing. And if I need to go back to that, just click on that number of 9 entries and we go back to that. Now, when we've already drilled down a bit, it seems kind of not that interesting if you've jumped in and you're seeing that you're narrowing everything down to one thing, right? But if I clear this session and we expand this over a larger period of time, so let's say we do the last 30 days, I'm going to do a run. Okay. Now I'm going to say that we're looking at 250 of over 1 million log entries. So if I say, hey, just cluster this around what might make sense, it's automatically going to use some analytical analysis to cluster these things together based on something. We're actually going to give it some time. I probably should have done 15 days. I usually do less time when I'm letting it do a raw cluster on everything like this. This is basically a string, right? So what we're doing by clicking around here is generating strings of search commands. There is a syntax to it, so if you just wanted to type in the string yourself, you could. What this is a wildcard, the typical star. Search everything and try and cluster it. And again, I usually do this over a day. I'm not sure what drove me nuts to try and do it over 30 days. I may stop it if it doesn't come back in the next few seconds. But it's basically just looking at absolutely everything and trying to cluster it based on one particular thing. And I think 30 days for our little demo environment. It's since they don't really give it a lot of horsepower because it's only for demos and they don't want to steal it from people. Oh, there we go. It's back. It's actually going through this and finding out what it is and how we're organized on these things. So here it's clustered and said, I see different types of activities, different types of sample messages, but I'm really narrowing it down to, out of those millions of records or log entries, I've broken this down into basically what seems to be only 35 unique type of entries. We see a lot of out of memory errors, right? We see these database audit logs that seem to have, they're all kind of like unique. Maybe there's changes going on there that are different. We see this log source, right? So if I wanted to say, let's group that by our log source. And it's showing us the histogram right now. But most of the time, one of the things we want to do is kind of look for the outliers. So we know what's happening a lot, but what is happening not that often? Well, here we go. We got processes that died. We've got an interesting database alert that doesn't really have direct value. Let's go look at that. And this is actually, so this is a call, a log entry, and it just looks like there was a dead call into a database, right? That got written to the log. There it really isn't a message or an alert of any kind. So, I mean, that might be worth looking at in that direction. So there's a lot of details. Let's go look back at that cluster. In fact, I'm going to lower this down for the sake of ease into 30 days, and I'm actually just going to cheat, and instead of selecting the cluster record, we're just going to go ahead and type it directly ourselves. So we'll just star pipe cluster. Now it's going to do this for the last 7 days, and let's see what's been happening over the last 7 days. Did not like that. Actually, it's just running slow. Let's give that a second. I'm going to refresh the page here. All right, so let's take this out to 7 days. And let's do we're going to actually have this give us a histogram with details. We're going to do this group this by, oh, it's already selected the default display fields. We want to actually group this by target type. I didn't want to take it from there. Let me just do this over here. All right, and now let's just go ahead and cluster that. Running a bit slow, so have patience, and we'll let this finish. It should only take another couple seconds. So what we'll do is we're going to show you one or two more things here within the going to a dashboard view or saving and creating a widget. And then we'll look at the actual kind of the basics of the setup. How do you go and configure where your sources are coming from, what parsers to use, etc. Unless it's going to continue running really slow and we won't even worry about that. I think you've got the general idea. We'll go straight to the dashboard view. Yeah, let's do that. So we're going to jump over here, unless, of course, it's just not going to respond at all. And we're going to jump into the dashboard. and we will go into this rideshare analytics. All right. Now, each of these things you see here, right, is a widget. And as I mentioned, widgets can come from a variety of the sources, whether it's the APM app or the log analytics app in this case. But what these are basically just saved searches. So when I click on edit, what you're going to see me is it's going to take me to where this widget, quote unquote, and I'm using my finger quotes here, was designed. And this widget is really just a log analytics search. So I can actually review what this search is. The search is actually focused on where the widget was based. So the filter here is actually defined by the dashboard that you're creating this on. But the content beyond just the time filter is going to be defined by what we've created here. And we're saying we're looking for a particular type, equal accepted, right? So we're looking for a particular type accepted, and we'll show you what that means. If I change this to my horizontal bar with records, so my histogram with bar, these are just the same bars, just displayed horizontally. But now we're looking at the matching, right, log entries that we're pulling this. So as we read through this and we look at these log entries, we know that they're coming from these, what servers are coming from. I can highlight the display field, so things like the type. If I pull that up here and add it to the display fields, it will highlight it for us. Right, so there's the type accepted. We're searching for type accepted, right? It's generating time stats count. Those are actually syntax words from the log analytics that say, go ahead and count by channel. So if I go ahead and we'll expand this again, we'll take channel, we'll add it in the highlighted field so we can highlight it and see it in the log entries. There's our channel entry, Boston, San Francisco. So the time stat count, right, by X says, give me a count, right, over time of the occurrence of each of these channels. And so each channel gets its own count, +1, +1, +1 in San Francisco, +2 in Boston, +2 San Francisco, etc. And that's how you generate this view, right? So it's pulling this data right out of the logs. Now, in addition to that, we've added a filter. So this is our search string. We've filtered the search down to systems or logs from systems that are from the rideshare app, okay? So this allows us to not just do this global search, we're narrowing this down. In the real world, right, you would probably narrow this down to the rideshare app production systems, right? Not every system that you have. And so you're able to do that here. But the point being is that as you run the stuff, as you go through your log analytics or create views or metrics views within APM and such, you will find ways where you can go in there and click on save, right? And this will let you save this view as a widget, right? Now, usually for your widgets, you would not want to save it with the data. You will select one of these views that does not have the data underneath it, right? Maybe you, not the histogram. I picked the wrong one. Maybe just the either the visual graphs, right? Bar, vertical, whatever, or the heat maps, right? Where you can really start looking at things. So you choose these particular maps or these particular visual views, and those are the ones that you save and create as a widget that you can then put into your dashboards, etc. So this is the operational part of the log analytics, right? Allowing you to create ongoing dynamic searches of logs that display the log information in a valuable way. But then, of course, you had that more intense drill down capability that you can actually, as you're searching for issues, right, you can drill down to those issues and find out what's going on and actually see the log entries, right? So we can always drill down into one of these log entries and find out what's going on. It's within a particular server or just any of these clickable fields that I'm displaying and highlighting that are part of the view of the log or the parsing of the log. I can drill down and focus on just those areas. So if I wanted to look at just log entries for San Francisco, I could do that. Click on San Francisco. It adds it to my search string, right? And now I'm looking at just log entries for San Francisco. Just like I could also say there is a category. Let me see. I believe it's category. Yep. And I can add, let's say I just wanted to look at economy rides. Maybe we're seeing an issue executing calls with just economy orders. I can do that as well. And just, again, focus down on specific types of categories. Okay. All right. So that is drilling, looking at data. Now, how do you set all this up? Where's some of that information? For your logs, right? So if we go back into our log analytics, anywhere in log analytics, I can click up here and click on add data. Okay. On add data. Now, the assumption here is that you've already deployed, right, your agents and such. And the deployment of your agents is going to be done via an admin user that has administrative rights. You'll go over to the agents field here, and this is where you will define. You'll see what you have deployed, where you are, download the binaries for agents, etc. Generate registration keys, and basically manage your on-prem pieces of Oracle Management Cloud. Now, the on-prem pieces are just agents that are running on the systems that you're going to want to monitor as part of your Management Cloud tools. Right? Now, to discuss these gateways, if you remember the slide earlier, gateways are your connection back to Oracle Management Cloud. So you can have just one gateway, right? Or you can have multiple gateways that connect into, or that allow you to connect. Now, you may have multiple gateways because you may have multiple data centers and you're gathering information from multiple data centers. But gateways are what handle that last connection from inside your data center or your source of your applications, whether that be a cloud infrastructure or your own internal private data center. All those APMs will connect, those APM agents or the cloud agents, they will connect to the gateway, to OMC via the gateway. And let me just bring up that slide one more time because I think just that will help clarify everything one more time. I may have confused everybody. So again, your gateway acts as your connection to the OMC, and those cloud agents, that data collector, and any of the other stuff will connect via the gateway to the cloud. So the gateway handles, the encryption, has the token encryption, etc., to make sure that all your information is tightly secured before going out in the internet out to the Oracle Management Cloud. All right. Now, within that, once you configure all that, let's go back to our logs. When we want to add, after you've deployed the appropriate agent, and you want to add more sources of data from an agent or such, within the log analytics, the data is there where it's going to tell you what's available. You have X number of sources, you have X number of targets associated with those sources. You can add more sources. If I were to say I knew that there was a WebLogic server that maybe, or some logs here that I had forgotten to add, I can click on Enable Sources here, right? I pick my targets. So here's my list of my various servers. I could pick a couple servers here, right? Click Select. Now I've defined the target, right? So a server, Rideshare App 1, Rideshare App 2, maybe two servers in this case, that are going to be sources that are targets for where I'm going to go look for sources. Now, what sources am I going to pull from each of these servers? And if you remember that slide with that really long list of sources, this is where they are, right? So I can go in here and select, that I want to look at server logs. Sometimes they give you the detail here, but I can select that from these two targets that I selected. I'm going to select all these Fusion middleware logs. And there's a couple other sources that I could go back and grab, but for now I could select those. Another one I like to show is when we go down and look at the host, right? Enable logs there. Again, I add a target. I'm looking at the hosts. select, pick add, and here are the various level of logs that I can grab, right, from that app, from the host directly. Sudoers list, sudoers log, very powerful tool, usually very handy to have if you're going to track that. Right, so this is how you add those sources in. Right, you can also define your own custom sources. So if they're not part of the out-of-the-box sources, right, source list, you can create your own source list, right, where you're going to go add for those there. Define what kind of source data you're going to pull. These are already the created ones that are out there, the log sources, and there's also the included parsers. So if a log source is, say, a log from WebLogic, there could be two logs that use the same syntax for displaying the information. So, the date timestamp is set up the exact same way. The information for the actual log entry is the same way. So all the information is there to pull it, and it's parsed. The parser is what takes that log data and breaks it out into log entry, target type, server location, the actual log entry itself. Within the log entry, what part of that is an error, what part is something else. So that's the parser. There are a lot of parsers that are available out of the box. You can also create your own parser, right? So this allows you to use a regular expression to define the syntax string and parse it out yourself. Now, this may be more than you ever wanted to do, but it's there, right? It's possible to create your own parser, enter some data, and create your own, test to make sure the parser is working properly. You can also upload your own, you would upload your data, apply your own parser, or you can just use a generic generic parser. And I usually scroll through this, and I always end up missing it a couple times. Somebody's already created a couple one here, but there's a generic parser that you can pull in here. I'm not going to look for it, but it's there. The generic parser is really there for using it against any of the services that it basically makes a best guess estimate at breaking up a log entry. So that's the parsers. Okay. So log sources are places I'm going to get log data from. Parsers are how I'm going to break up a particular log file and pull the appropriate data out. Okay, so that is how you configure the log analytics. So quick review, you go into your administration, you go to agents, you download your binaries, you deploy those binaries, you set up your gateway, your agents, those feed data up into the management cloud. It automatically starts pulling those and breaking those up based on the included parsers and the log sources you define. All right. And that's pretty much it, right? The advanced configuration we're looking at, where we're defining specific sources, are really just a deeper way of setting things up, whereas this kind of data is already gathered, so you could just go ahead and set up based on what Oracle Cloud Log Analytics recommends. So when you start uploading data, it's going to say, hey, I'm seeing stuff. My agent is telling, or your agents are telling me that you have host information, WebLogic server information, HTTP server information, and a lot of this is coming, truth to tell, from Enterprise Manager, in that it's already got the information of what you have out there. We can go into more detail as to what exactly is coming from Enterprise Manager, but again, you have the ability to configure all this, right? What do you have to monitor yourself, or the data collector in conjunction is able to upload this into Oracle Management Cloud and tell it, based on what they're monitoring with the EM, here's what is already available to monitor, and then you can just enable Log Analytics to monitor those pieces. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. Either leverage what you already have out there and tell the cloud, use this in order to learn about my systems and capture what you need, or I can specifically set up my own sources, enter all that information myself, and then either it will know which parsers to use because it recognizes a WebLogic log, or I can create and manage my own parsers myself. Okay. Now we have a few minutes left. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions, and we will go from there. Okay, first question. I thought I answered it, but I'll go ahead and answer it one more time. How is security handled? In order to address that, let's take a look at the slide. The security is basically over HTTPS, right? So there's tokens that are defined. You download the gateway and your appropriate registration keys and tokens into the gateway. That creates the secure connection over to the Oracle Management Cloud from your data center or data centers. You can have more than one gateway. And then there's also, of course, the secured connection between the cloud agents and the gateways, right? The data collector, the cloud agent, et cetera. So there's kind of double place. You have a single point of entry that's controlled by the gateway. This allows you to really finely tune and control your firewalls and such, because all the connections are coming from the gateway, not from a bunch of agents around your world. And then, of course, there's internal security as well. Now, the one thing I forgot to mention, and I sorry I didn't have time for it, there is the ability to do data masking, right, on your logs. So if you do not want to upload, for whatever reason, your logs contain passwords or usernames, and you don't want to do that, you can actually tell the cloud agents to not pass that information off, right? As it collects the data, it will say, oh, I know this string. This is a username. I'm going to X this out. And then I'm going to upload it into the gateway. So there is the ability to create very fine-grained masking so that that log data, which you consider sensitive enough that it shouldn't even leave your data center, can be masked out before the data gets uploaded into the cloud. Okay. Well, I don't see that was the only question, so hopefully I did a good explanation. If you have any other questions, you will receive a copy of these slides in just a few days. And in that will be information to contact us if you should have any additional questions, whether that's purchasing questions, licensing questions, additional technical questions, or if you'd like to have a one-on-one demo where we can kind of look around the things that you found of interest or maybe didn't have answered. Would be glad to assist you in that research and help you get to better understand these tools. I think they're very powerful, provide an extremely quick and fast way of getting very advanced in your monitoring capabilities, and definitely worth taking a deeper look if you feel that you want to provide a better user experience to your customers and or business partners. With that, we'll end this session. Thank you very much. And if you're joining us in an hour, we'll see you just then for the IT analytics. Thanks. Have a great day.